Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to our respected lecturer, Professor Dr. Hairuddin Muhammad Ali and our fellow friends. Now is Group 5 turn as the last group to present Chapter 12, Leadership in School. Group 5 members including me, Rohani binti Abdul Syukur, Salma binti Sabtu, Muhammad Zawawi bin Seman, Nur Elina binti Nasruddin and Sabaria binti Rasid. Content of this presentation including defining leadership, the nature of administrative work, transformational leadership and conclusion that include Islamic perspective and relation to the local context. Objectives of this presentation are to understand the concept of leadership in schools, to identify the nature of administrative work, to understand 5 contingency models of leadership, to explain theory and research about transformational leadership, and to relate leadership in schools with Islamic perspective. Leaderships in school. Leader and leadership are important because they serve as anchors, provide guidance in times of change, and are responsible for the effectiveness of organization. According to BAS 1990, leadership is often regarded as the single most important factor in the success or failure of institutions, while Ogawa and Scribner 2002 assume that leaders make a difference and are largely responsible for school performance. Defining leadership. Martin M. Kramer's 1997 offers the following typical definition. Leadership is a process of social influences in which one person is able to enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task, while Youth 2002 said that leadership should be defined broadly as a social process in which a members of a group or organization influence the interpretation of internal and external events, the choice of goals or desired outcomes, organizations of work activities, individual motivation and abilities, power relations, and shared orientations. Now we will go through the nature of administrative work. Given the intense and long-standing interest in leaders and leadership, what is it that leaders do that is so intriguing? Can describing the nature of leaders' work advance our understanding of leadership? Certainly. Partial responses to these questions can be gained by observing leaders as they administer and lead their organizations. Given the irregularities in the research, Kyung Ek Chong and Cecil Miskin 1989 summarized the major findings. Administering schools is feverish and consuming. School administrators work long hours at an unrelenting, physically exhausting pace. The second one. School leaders rely on verbal media. They spend a great deal of time walking around the building and talking to individuals and groups. The third one. Administrator activities vary widely, hence, administrators constantly change gears and tasks. The fourth one, managerial work is fragmented. For school administrators, the pace is rapid and frenzied. Discontinuity prevalent and the span of concentration short. How do we understand the nature of this work in terms of leading schools? To respond to this question, we will summarize the dominant theoretical approaches to understanding leadership, traits, skills, and leadership. Many individuals still believe, as Aristotle did centuries ago, that from the hour of birth, some are marked for subjection, others for rule. Aristotle thought that individuals are born with characteristics that would make them leaders. The conception that the key factors in determining leadership are inherited produce the so-called trait approach of leadership. By 1919 observed that early in 20th century, leaders were generally regarded as a superior individuals who, because of fortunate inheritance or social circumstances, possesses qualities and abilities that differentiate them from people in general. Researchers attempt to isolate unique traits or characteristics of leaders that differentiated them from their followers. Early trait research. In particular, Ralph M. Stockdale, 1948, reviewed 124 trait studies of leadership that were completed between 1904 and 1947. He classified the personal factors associated with leadership into the following 5 general categories: capacity, achievement, responsibility, participation, and status. As a consequence, Stockdale added a 6th factor associated with leadership: situational components. Recent perspective on leadership traits and skills. Notwithstanding the lack of success in identifying general leadership traits, research persisted. Research emphasized on selection-focused trait research on the relationship between leader traits and leader effectiveness, rather than on the comparison of leaders and non-leaders. Stockdale, in 1981, concluded that a leader is characterized by the following traits: a strong drive for responsibility and task completion, vigor and persistence in pursuit of goals, venturousness and originality in problem-solving, drive to exercise initiative in social situations, self-confidence and sense of personal identity, willingness to accept consequences of decision and action, readiness to absorb interpersonal stress, willingness to tolerate frustration and delay, ability to influence other person's behavior, and capacity to structure interaction system to the purpose at hand. Similarly, Glenn L. Imagat, 1988, concluded that the trait of intelligence, dominance, self-confidence, and high energy of activity level are commonly associated with leaders. Traits and skills associated with effective leadership. Personality traits. According to Yu, 2002, personality traits are relatively stable dispositions to behave in a particular way. The list of personality factors associated with effective leadership is quite long. 5 seem particularly important. Self-confident leaders are more likely to set high goals for themselves and their followers, to attempt difficult tasks, and to persist in the face of problems and defeats. Stress-tolerant leaders are likely to make good decisions, to stay calm, and to provide decisive direction to subordinates in difficult situations. Emotionally mature leaders tend to have an accurate awareness of their strengths and weaknesses and to be oriented towards self-improvement. Integrity means that the behavior of leaders are consistent with their stated values and that they are honest, ethical, responsible, and trustworthy. Extroversion, or being outgoing, sociable, uninhibited, and comfortable in groups is related to the likelihood that an individual will emerge as group leaders. Motivational traits. Motivation is a set of energetic forces that originate both within as well as beyond an individual to initiate work-related behavior and to determine its form, direction, intensity, and duration. Drawing from the works of several scholars, 5 motivational traits are especially critical for leaders. Task and interpersonal needs are 2 underlying dispositions that motivate effective leaders. Power needs refer to motives of individuals to seek positions of authority and to exercise influence over others. Achievement orientation includes a need to achieve, desire to excel, drive to succeed, willingness to assume responsibility, and a concern for task objective. High expectation for success of school administrators refers to their belief that they can do the job and will receive valued outcomes for their efforts. Self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to organize and carry out a course of action, is related to leader performance and transformational leadership. Skills. An important but often neglected component of educational leadership is the skills to complete a job. A recent model posits that problem-solving skills, social judgment skills, and knowledge make effective leadership possible. 3 particularly important categories of skills associated with leader effectiveness are technical, interpersonal, and conceptual. Technical skills mean having specialized knowledge about and being adept at a specific type of work, activity, procedures, or technique to accomplish the task. Interpersonal skills encompass an understanding of feelings and attitudes of others and knowing how to work with people in individual and cooperative work relationships. Conceptual or cognitive skills involve the abilities to form and work with concepts, to think logically, and to reason analytically, deductively, and inductively. We have identified 3 sets of characteristics: personality, motivational, and skills that are related to leadership effectiveness. Although traits are relative, more stable or fixed than skills, both can be assessed learned and enhanced through a variety of methods.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Salma binti Sabtu. I will continue our presentation with the topic of situation and leadership. What can we know about situation and leadership? Changing leaders produce naturally occurring instabilities in the organization and offer challenging opportunities for individuals. The replacement of principles is destructive because it changes the lines of communication, realigns relationship of power, perfect decision making, and generally disturb the equilibrium of normal activities. Those who appoint new leaders, individuals who work with them, and those who may be affected by their action watch for signs that change will occur. New leaders face high performance expectations to maintain or improve existing levels of organizational effectiveness, according to Ms. Kell and Gosgrove. Best 1990 maintains that situational view overemphasizes the situational and underemphasizes the personal structure of leadership. Personal and situational factors have strong reciprocal association. Leaders exert influence through the situation, and the situation support and limits leader influence. There are 5 situational determinants of leadership. First, structural properties of the organization, such as size, hierarchical structure, formalization, technology. Second, role characteristic, which related to type and difficulty of task, procedural rules, content, and performance expectation. Third, subordinate characteristic, which related to education, age, knowledge, and experience, tolerance of ambiguity, responsibility, and power. Fourth, internal environment, which related to climate, culture, openness, participation levels, group atmosphere, values, and norms. And the last one, external environment, which related to complexity, stability, uncertainty, resource dependency. Move to next topic, which related to behaviors and leadership. What is leader behavior? Leader behavior is one concerned with people, interpersonal relations, and group maintenance, and the other with production, debt completion, and goal achievement. The Ohio State and related leadership studies measures 2 basic dimensions of leader behavior. The first one is initiating structure, and the second one is consideration. For initiating structure includes any leader behavior that delineates the relationship between the leader and subordinates and establish defined patterns of organization, channel of communication, and methods of procedure. For consideration, include leader behavior that indicates friendship, trust, warmth, interest, and respect in the relationship between the leader and the members of work group. To integrate the many typologies and taxonomies, Yap 2002 developed a 3-category framework of leader behaviors. The first one is task-oriented behavior. It encompasses clarifying roles, planning and organizing, operation, and monitoring organizational function. This action emphasizes accomplishing tasks, using personnel and resources efficiently, maintaining stable and reliable process, and making incremental improvement. Second one, relation-oriented behaviors include supporting, developing, recognizing, consulting, and managing conflict. These activities focus on improving relationship and helping people, increasing cooperation and teamwork, and building commitment to the organization. The third one is change-oriented behaviors. Consists of scanning and interpreting external events, articulating an interactive vision, proposing innovative program, appealing for change, and creating a coalition to support and implement changes. These acts concentrate on adapting to change in the environment, making major changes in goals, policies, procedures, and programs, and gaining commitment to the changes. Effectiveness. Leadership effectiveness can be defined as having a more objective dimension, accomplishment of organizational goal, and 2 subjective dimensions, perceptual evaluation of significant reference groups, and overall job satisfaction of subordinates. There are 3 effective indicators for educational leaders. First one is personal, which related to perceived reputation and self-assessment. Second one, organizational, which related to goal attainment. And the last one is individual, which related to satisfaction and performance. Perceived evaluation of performance are important. Subjective judgment of the leader by himself or herself, subordinates, peers, and superiors within the school and by members of the public outside the school yet measure of effectiveness. In schools, the opinion, for example, respect, admiration, and commitment held by students, teachers, administration, and patrons are highly significant. However, these groups may view the performance levels quite differently. A second indicator of leadership effectiveness is the satisfaction of organizational participants. Finally, the relative level of school goal achievement also defines the effectiveness of educational leader.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. I, Muhammad Zawal bin Seman, I continue for presentation Group 5 for the title of Contingency Model of Leadership. Contingency approved such as the general model were the most influential model of leadership in 1980. At their best, contingency approved include the four set of concepts that we have just considered: trait of leader, characteristic of the situation, behavior of the leader, and effectiveness of the leader. So, we will review 5 contingency model of leadership. Instructional leadership specific to educational organization, distributed or shared leadership as it apply to school, and 3 general model that have received extensive consideration across a wide range of organizations: least preferred co-worker, substitute for leadership, and past goal theory. Instructional leadership. Instructional leadership is a particular form of the leadership that emphasizes the improvement of teaching and learning in the school technical core. Instructional leader attempt to change such school factors as curriculum contents, teaching methods, assessment strategies, and culture norm for academic and achievements. Such leadership can come from a variety of sources, including principals and other administrators, teachers, parents, and students themselves. Secondly, least preferred co-worker theory. Construct the first major theory to propose specific contingency leadership is the study of leadership. Leadership style. Leadership style is determined by the motivational system of the leader, that is, the underlying needs structure that motivate behavior in various interpersonal situations. Situational control. Situational control is the degree of power and influence that leaders have to implement plans, decisions, and action strategies. Effectiveness. In the least preferred co-worker theory is straightforward, namely, the extent to which the group accomplishes its primary tasks. And third, substitute for leadership model. Contingency and other model of leadership assume that some kind of formal hierarchical leadership is needed and important in organizations such as school. Fourth, distributed leadership. Approach such as the instructional, least preferred co-worker, and transformational leadership emphasize, or in some cases romanticize, leadership by individuals such of principle as being the key to school effectiveness. And lastly, reformulated past goal theory. According, the, according to the model of distributed leadership, school rely on a variety of individuals and roles to accomplish leadership tasks. Consider a school in which you have work, or of which you have knowledge, and list the individual leader by name and organizational role. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Noor Nasrin. I will present the next subtopic is changing leadership perspective. As we know, in presenting the trait behavior, situational, and contingency approaches, we have tended to follow a historical sequence of knowledge development for leadership. Most important, the research examined more and more the inconsequential questions and provided little new knowledge. My friends, we have three types of leadership, which is laissez-faire, transactional leadership, and transformational leadership. Laissez-faire leadership, which is the leaders avoid expressing their views or taking action on important issues, try to make at least delay decision, ignore responsibility, avoid no feedback, and allow authority to remain dormant, which is avoidance or absence of leadership, and consequently in the most passive and least effective. It shows engage faculty and students, for example, as little, as minimum, as lowest as possible, and shows minimal concern for the learning and development of students or needs of the teachers, school, and allows school with structures and process to continue at the same way. No changes at all. It is the same. Every single year it is the same. Next, transactional leadership. These leaders motivate followers by exchanging rewards for services rendered. Okay? For example, a principal or headmaster provide new instructional materials or increase spending time to teachers so they can institute a new curriculum program. When subordinates are doing their work in the organization, such as school, transactional leaders recognize what followers want from work and try to provide them with what they want. Under transactional leadership is posited to have three components, which is contingent reward leadership. It refers to leader behaviors that focus on clarifying role and task requirement and provide followers with reward contingent on the followers' performance. Number two, active management by exception means that leaders maintain high level of vigilance to ensure that standards are met. Number three, passive management by exception means that leaders fail to intervene until problem becomes serious. Okay. The third, transformational leadership. Transformational leaders are proactive, raise the awareness level of followers about inspirational collective interests, and help followers achieve usually higher performance outcomes. This theory has a fierce comprised in transformational leadership, which is number one, idealize influence. Means build trust and respect in followers and provide the basis for accepting radical and fundamental changes in the way individuals and organizations do their works. Number two, inspirational motivation come primarily from leader behaviors that provide meaning and challenge for followers. These leaders energize people by projecting an attractive, optimistic future, emphasizing ambitious goals, and creating idealized vision for the organization and clearly communicating to followers that the vision is attainable. The next, intellectual stimulation addresses followers to be innovative, remain the teachers in school, and creative by questioning all assumptions, traditions, and beliefs, reframing problems, and approaching all situations in the new ways. And then the third one is individualized consideration, means that transformational leaders pay particular attention to each individual's needs for achievement and growth, creating new learning opportunities, and individually considerate leader listen actively and effectively. Ibarat kata pepatah bahasa Inggeris, lead by example. My friends, which one the category that we want to become a leader? Is it laissez-faire, transactional leader, or transformational leader? Next, I will pass to our good friend, Cikgu Sabaria.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Sabaria binti Rasing. I will continue this presentation with the topic Theory and Research about Transformational Leadership. Transformational leadership has been receiving extensive attention from scholars and practitioners. As illustrated in the description of the 4 I's, transformational leaders are expected to define the need for change, create new visions and master commitment to the visions, concentrate on long-term goals, inspire followers to transcend their own interests to pursue high-order goals, change the organization to accommodate their visions rather than work within the existing one, and mentor followers to take greater responsibility for their own development and that of Bas and Avolio contend that transactional leadership forms the basis of a sustainable leadership system. For example, if leaders stand by the many transactions with followers, over time the people come to trust the leaders. It is high level of trust and identification that transformational leaders use as a foundation for achieving exemplary performance. Transformational leadership does not replace transactional leadership but expand its effect on follower motivation, satisfaction, and performance. In addition, Bass observes that transformational leadership is seen when leaders stimulate others to view their work from new perspective, generate an awareness of the mission or vision of the organization, develop colleagues and followers to higher levels of ability and potential, and motivate them to look beyond their own interests toward those that will benefit the group. Transformational leaders set more challenging goals and typically achieve the higher performance than transactional leaders. In an overall, transformational leadership is more focused on the human factor. As mentioned by Bass, 1990, superior leadership performance, transformational leadership, occurs when leaders broaden and elevate the interests of their employees, when they generate awareness and acceptance of the purposes and missions of the group, and when they stir the employees to look beyond their own self-interest for the good of the group. Well, let's move on to the next subtopic, which is situational factors in the context of transformational leadership model. Bass downplayed the importance of situational effect when he claimed that the transformational leadership model is valid across situations and cultures. More recently, Bass and Riggio acknowledged that there is no one best way to lead and that situational factors can influence the effectiveness of leaders. To be effective in crisis conditions, the leaders must be transformational and rise above what their followers see as their immediate needs and appropriate responses. Situational conditions that likely influence the emergence and success of both transactional and transformational leadership include stability of the external environment, organization structure and culture, public or private sector, tasks and goals, and distribution of power between the leaders and followers. Since the introduction of transformational leadership in the mid-1980s, a vast research literature about it has developed. In regard to the overall theory, findings from studies using the MLQ indicate that transformational leaders receive higher ratings, are perceived as leading more effective organizations, and have subordinates who exert greater effort than transactional leaders. For educational setting, Leftwood has formulated 8-dimension model using the concept of transformational and transactional leadership. Based on the model, the researcher found that transformational leaders have greater positive effect on the educational organization than transactional leaders. Overall, transformational leadership theory is being used widely and is generally supported by numerous research studies. Before I end my presentation, I would like to relate in short the concept of educational leadership, especially school leadership from an Islamic point of view. According to Tibawi, the notion of educational leadership in Islam derived from Islamic philosophy of education and contextual variation of conceptualization and practice across Muslim societies involve interpretation informed by an understanding of religious texts which reinforce the interplay between faith and concept. The leader should be close to religion so that they will bring a more positive impact on ethical leadership and be a good role model for their staff. The best role model in the world is Prophet Muhammad SAW, as mentioned in Surah Al-Qalam verse 4. And verily, you, O Muhammad SAW, are of an exalted standard character. In the context of Malaysian education, excellent principals are sense makers of school that help create a sustainable school climate that will enhance student and teachers' productivity. In exploring the leadership characteristic of an excellent school principal in Malaysia, various research shows that principals demonstrated characteristic outlined by literature and use various educational strategies and leadership style. Therefore, good preparation to face the challenges of global and 21st century can be achieved by the improvement of the educational leadership and teachers' development in educational system in Malaysia. That's all from our groups. Thank you for listening.